Many of you have probably watched Back to the Future, an American sci-fi film released in 1985 about a teenager who accidentally travels 30 years back into the past. It became the highest grossing film of 1985 and is considered to be one of the greatest science fiction films of all time. However, many of you might be wondering if the events of Back to the Future, or any time travel in general, is scientifically possible. In today's video, I will be covering the misconceptions about time travel. Firstly, it is important to clarify some basic things regarding time travel. Technically, time traveling to the future is possible, but time traveling to the past is either hypothetical or impossible. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time passes at different rates for observers moving at different speeds or with different gravitational fields. A good example of this would be the Global Positioning System, or GPS, since satellites move at high speeds and time runs a little bit slower for satellites compared to clocks on Earth. So GPS technology needs to account for these competing effects. Many people conceptualize time to be a river flowing in one direction. Now, a more accurate description would be a continuous progression of existence that occurs in an irreversible succession from the past through the present and into the future. In a way, traveling through time is different from just traveling through space. Now, the most common misconception or myth regarding time travel is that there are many time travelers that can easily move back and forth through time, claiming that they know the future or had a glimpse of the past. This is something that can be debunked immediately. From 2000 to 2001, John Titor, an online user, claimed to be a time traveler from 2036 and warned about a civil war in 2008 and a nuclear war in 2015, which did not come true. In 1928, Charlie Chaplin's film, The Circus, features a woman who was holding something that resembled a mobile phone. However, many experts stated that this was actually an early form of a mobile hearing aid. In 1941, a picture of a bridge reopening ceremony was taken and it showed a man that looked like a modern-day hipster. Many people concluded that he was just a regular man who wore contemporary clothes and had a contemporary haircut. In 1901, two French women, Charlotte Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdan, claimed to have seen people in 18th century clothing at the Palace of Versailles. But the most likely explanation was that they were either hallucinating or seeing people in period costumes. As mentioned earlier, time traveling into the past is almost impossible and not currently feasible. But there are some theories as to how traveling through time might actually be like, if it were real. Theoretically, traveling through wormholes and cosmic strings could allow people to travel through the past, but it would most likely result in traveling to a random point in time, which eliminates the purpose of time traveling to experience or visit something during a certain historical time period. Now let's come up with a fictionalized hypothetical scenario to see what traveling through the past would be like. Let's assume that there's a 25-year-old man named John who travels back in time from the year 2025 to the 1960s. Now, John accidentally prevents his grandfather and grandmother from meeting each other. Would that mean that John wouldn't be born or cease to exist? The short answer is no. Now, one theory is that John wouldn't be affected by this since he is currently in a parallel timeline and not the same timeline as the one he was born in. Another theory is that John is in fact in the same timeline that he was born in, but the universe has a way of fixing itself, and John would eventually be born to the same parents as normal. Basically, John would be a participant of the past, but not an architect. On June 28, 2009, British scientist Stephen Hawking hosted a time traveler party at the University of Cambridge. Hawking sent out invitations the next day when the party was over. Unsurprisingly, no one attended his time traveler party. He concluded that time travel to the past was impossible. Defenders of time travel would say that either the time travelers did not want to participate in the party, or they went to a parallel timeline, which didn't affect the main timeline. Regardless of what theory you believe in, this incident is experimental evidence that debunks the possibility of traveling back in time. How about traveling into the future? Astronauts technically travel to the future since time passes slower for them compared to Earth. This means that astronauts age slower in space than regular humans on Earth. A good example of this would be Mark Kelly, a senator from Arizona, and Scott Kelly, an astronaut who took part in many space missions. Scott Kelly spent nearly a year on the International Space Station and aged 10 milliseconds less than his brother Mark. Though this might not seem like much, it does show the effects of time dilation on humans. Another misconception is that time is fixed throughout the solar system. If something happens to the sun, it would take 8 minutes and 20 seconds for us to know. This is because the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second, and the sun is very far away from the Earth. If the Andromeda galaxy was destroyed, we would not know until 2.5 million years after its destruction. Essentially, time is relative to your frame of reference. One last thing to mention is the Voyager 1 spacecraft, which was launched in 1977 and is currently located approximately 25 billion kilometers from Earth. That distance is so large that it would take 22.5 hours to send a radio signal from the Voyager 1 back to Earth. To summarize, this phenomenon isn't really about time traveling at all, but rather time works differently in space due to the effects of relativity. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting on this video to give me feedback. Thank you for watching.